the bar's on the floor. Just give me the happiness, okay? It was not a favorite of mine. I'm not having a good time. Dear God, help me.
No, thank you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Brianna, and this is For Pause in a Book. I make book and lifestyle related content, so if that's something that you're interested in, make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below. Today, we are going to be talking about the Goodreads Choice Awards, specifically the romance nominees. So the Goodreads Choice Awards is always a point of contention among the booktube community. I think that there's not a lot of diversity in it. There's not a lot of choice there. Even though it's the Goodreads Choice Awards, it's very much not indicative of what's going on in publishing and what's happening in at least in the book internet, right? But it is what it is. Everyone still makes content about the Goodreads Choice Awards. And so I thought I'm going to read the finalist for the romance. Over the summer, Goodreads also came out with this list of the best books of the summer, the best romance books of the summer. And there were 12 books on that. So I read all 12 of those. Fortunately, a lot of those are on the Goodreads Choice Awards. So I don't have to, I don't have to read 20 books. So of those 12, 8 of them are in the top 20 of the Goodreads Choice Awards. I'm not too surprised by this, with one exception. I am very surprised that Something Wilder by Christina Lauren did not make it into at least the top 20. I know that a lot of people didn't like that book necessarily. However, it's still Christina Lauren. They always make it onto the Goodreads Choice Awards. So I was very interested to see that that did not happen. Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. The Wedding Crasher by Mia Sosa. Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. Electric Idol by Katie Robert. Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. Dating Dr. Dill by Nisha Sharma. Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. And of course, Book Lovers by Emily Henry. All made it onto the Goodreads Choice Awards. Along with those 8, we've got 12 new books here. And my goal is to read as many of them as I can. Of the top 20, I have read 10 of them, so exactly half of them, which stands for a pretty big project, but definitely something that I can still work with. So let's talk about what each one of these books are, and do a synopsis. They're not gonna be in any particular order. And then we will get into the vlog portion of this video where I will be reading these books and making my predictions, making my rankings. So these are the 10 books that I have already read and the rankings that I have them in. This is pretty much my summer video. Those ones, and then a couple more that I had read since that video. So first up, Delilah Green Doesn't Care. I don't foresee anything surpassing that. That's one of my favorite books of the year. I don't see it happening. Secondly, we have The Wedding Crasher. I am a little concerned about this one. I don't think that it will make the top 10 for sure. A lot of people didn't like this one as much as The Worst Best Man, but I loved this book. Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. I definitely think this one will make the top 10. Electric Idol by Katie Robert is number 4. I don't think this one will make a top 10. It's the second book in a series. Those tend to not do as well because you have better favorability of the people that did read it because they liked Neon Gods, but if they didn't like Neon Gods, they didn't continue with the series. Next up, Thanks for Listening by Julia Whelan. Then Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. Dating Dr. Dill by Nisha Sharma. The Kiss Curse by Erin Sterling. Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. And Book Lovers by Emily Henry. The reason why I have Book Lovers so far down is I don't think it's a romance. I think that it's a contemporary story with a romantic subplot. But the main story here is definitely that of her and her sister. It was not a favorite of mine. These 10 books, other than telling you what the synopsis are, I'm not going to be going in depth about my thoughts on that. But these books, I will link my summer video where I did read all of these. Essentially, this is part 2 of that series. This video will be way too long if I talk about every single book. So let's talk about synopsises. These are in no particular order. These are just the order that I pulled them off of the shelf. First up, Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. This will likely make one of the best books of my personally of the year. This is the only sapphic book on this entire list. There are a couple of books that have queer main characters or queer side characters, but this is the only sapphic relationship. But this is about Delilah, who comes back from New York to her hometown to photograph her stepsister's wedding. And things fall apart. However, she meets back up with Claire, who was one of her stepsister's friends back in high school, and Claire is bisexual, and they start a little romance, and it's so cute, so steamy. I really, really love this book. I love this series. I really liked Astrid as well, which was the second book in the series. I think that Ashley Herring Blake did an amazing job just really fleshing out all of the characters that were in this book, not just Delilah and Claire, but the other side characters as well. Next up, Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. This book is a back and forth between their high school years and her coming back for a family member's funeral, and this like second chance romance. Essentially, she lived in this town during the summer and had this like summer boyfriend, and then is going back to that town. I believe it was 13 years later, and for like a family member's funeral, and stuff starts happening again. I don't want to talk about my thoughts in this one quite yet because I am actually vlogging this one. This is one of the ones that will be in this vlog, but so stay tuned for that. Dating Dr. Dill by Nisha Sharma was one that I read over the summer. This is about a woman who has to be engaged in order to get her inheritance so that she can buy her mother's house, so that it stays in the family rather than it being sold off. And so she meets this like TV doctor, and they start a like fake engagement. This one was really cute. There's a lot of like family drama in it as well. The like her aunts are just hilarious. Yeah, this one was a good time. Next up, we have Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. This is about two people who come from very different lives. She is a doctor. He's a carpenter. They have a very different lives. She's trying to figure out basically how to fit him into her life. She really enjoys him, but her family is like, no, you should be dating a doctor. I've heard really good things about this book. A lot of people in my circle are talking about this one, but we'll see how well it does in the grand scheme of the Goodreads Choice Awards. Next up, Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. This is one of the indie published books that are on this list, which is really exciting that we are getting a little bit more indie romances. I do think that there's another conversation about whether or not we should have other subgenres of romance, because all 20 of these are contemporary romances. There's no historical romance, there's no paranormal romance, there's no nothing. It's contemporary romance, and that is it. So that's another conversation though. This has a very Colleen Hoover-esque feel to it. It's a woman who comes into town looking for her sister, I believe, right after she runs away from her own wedding. Her sister ends up like, is not a good person, right? Ends up like stealing from her, stealing her car, and leaves her with her niece. And then obviously there's a grumpy man in the town that's kind of like the mayor of the town, and like he kind of takes her in, lets her live in like one of his rental properties, because obviously like she just got robbed. So anyway, and then obviously there's romance. Next up, we have The American Roommate Experiment by Elena Armas. This is the second book in the Spanish Love Deception series. And this is about two people who end up staying in the same apartment. It's essentially like this woman's ceiling floods or like roof caves in, whatever. And so she goes to try to stay at her friend's house while her friend is out of town. But they have already like rented it out as an Airbnb or something, so there's gonna be like this awkward meet cute apparently. I was not a fan of the Spanish Love Deception, so I'm curious to see what this one's going to be, if this one's gonna be any better. Next up, we have Book Lovers by Emily Henry, and Emily Henry has taken the romance world by storm. She had Beach Read, People We Meet on Vacation, and now Book Lovers that have all made like either won the Goodreads Choice Awards or was in the top 3 every single year that she's had a book out. This is just a very universally popular book. Someone said that it is like romance for people who don't necessarily read romance, and I think that that's really correct. Unfortunately, I read this over the summer, and it's not a favorite of mine. Like I said, the book is more about her and her sister than her and the love interest. It's a contemporary with a romantic subplot. I've said that a lot on my channel, so we'll see. I definitely think that this one has a really good chance of winning. However, we do have some Colleen Hoover on here, so that's also a contingent as well. Speaking of, we have Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. This is the first of 2 books on this list, and this book came out at the beginning of the year. I did read this one over the summer, and this is about a woman who gets out of prison, and she comes back to the town where she lives. She's trying to get in touch with her daughter. For reasons that are spoilers, she has a child in prison, and like the reason she's in prison is kind of a spoiler. she has a child in prison, and then the grandparents, like the paternal grandparents, get custody of the daughter, and so she is trying to get her back, and then there's also a romance. Again, another one of those things, like, it's not really a romance. It's a contemporary with a romantic subplot. But again, that's where we are here at the Goodreads Choice Awards. Yeah, I liked this book, but not necessarily a romance. One that is definitely a romance, Electric Idol by Katie Robert. This is the second book in the Neon Gods series, and this is the story of Eros and Psyche. This is a like modern day retelling of the Greek mythology, and like, you know, with like the Greek gods and stuff like that. The first one was Hades and Persephone. This is Eros and Psyche. It's more like political in terms. Like, they don't have superpowers. They're not gods. They like hold these positions of power within their little political world. And like they have the position of Eros and Psyche. If that makes sense. This is very steamy. This has a plus size bisexual main character. This book was amazing. I read it at the beginning of the year. I kind of binged Neon Gods and Electric Idol, and I had a really good time with this one. Next up, we have Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. This is the second book in the Bellinger Sisters series. The first book was It Happened One Summer, and it did really well in the Goodreads Choice Awards last year. I am of the unpopular opinion that I think that this book is better than It Happened One Summer, but most people do not like this one nearly as much, and so I don't know how well this one will do in the Choice Awards, because I don't think people like this one as much. So we'll see. This book is about Hannah, who is the sister of Piper, who was the main character in the first book. And she is on a movie set, or like she's a producer or something like that, and she's bringing them back to this town where they had spent the summer before during It Happened One Summer to shoot this movie. And she has had an on again, off again, like friendship. They've never done anything sexual or anything like that, but they just like kind of talk through text over the past year with Fox, who is the friend of the love interest in It Happened One Summer. And then when she comes back to that town, she ends up staying in his house. And obviously, like, there's this like friends to lovers romance. Friends to lovers is like my god tier trope, which I think is why I loved this book so much. I really like the conversations about how like we're kind of raising men to have this like toxic masculinity, and like from a very young age they are like presumed to be these players, and then they just kind of like fall into that mold when that's not who they are. This one was really good. So it's definitely towards the top of my personal rankings, but we'll see. Next up, we have The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. Catherine Center writes a lot more like women's fiction, which I don't like that term, but more like general fiction. And this is kind of her intro into romance. This is about a bodyguard who's a woman, which I love that. I love like reversing that trope. And this is an actor who I think he had been stalked or something like that, so he has a bodyguard. He goes back to his family home, and he doesn't want to tell his family that he has to have a bodyguard, so they pretend to like fake date, which I love. Fake dating, another god tier trope. The next book is the one that I think I was probably the most hesitant to read, the most worried about going up into this. I knew that this book was going to be on this list. I knew that it was going to do well, and I knew I was going to have to read it, and that is Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. This is the second book following the Love Hypothesis, although I don't think that they are quite in like the same universe, but it is like part of her feminist novels. And this is about a woman who works at the NIH, and she has been tasked to co-lead this project creating helmets for astronauts. She is paired with someone from NASA who happens to be her longtime academic rival from college. And she thinks that he hates her because of everything that he had done in college. So of course there's going to be this rivals to lovers academic romance. And then there's also a you've got mail trope, which I do love. If you don't remember, I read The Love Hypothesis earlier in the year and absolutely hated it. Like, it will end up on my worst books of 2022. I was so mad at that book because everyone loved it, and I was just like, oh my god, this is so dumb. I had a lot of hesitations going into this book. Next up are a couple of books that really show the power of TikTok. We have Twisted Hate by Anna Huang. This is definitely going around on Book Talk. This is actually the third book in the Twisted series, although they're all companion novels, so I will not be reading the earlier books to this series. Might go back and read it later, but for now, no. This is definitely a chunker. This is about a doctor and a law student, and it's kind of a hate to love romance. He's kind of this like grumpy, don't get in my way kind of guy. And then she is the opposite, grumpy sunshine. We love that. So yes, Power of TikTok. The other one is Terms and Conditions by Lauren Asher, another book that is going all over in the book talk world. This is the second book in the Dreamland Billionaires series. I actually did read the first one of this one prior to reading this one because I didn't think that they were. I mean, they seemed more like sequels. I could have read this one by itself. But this is the second book in the Dreamland Billionaires. It's essentially like this family of billionaires who own the like equivalent of Disney. And in this one, he is going to become the CEO, but he has to get married and have an heir before he can claim that. Like, it was part of his grandfather's inheritance. Is like, you can become CEO, but you have to get married and have an heir before you take over the company. He has a fiance. She backs out last minute and they're like, well, crap, this has to happen, right? There's a timeline. So his assistant, who like they've worked together for so many years, steps in and like becomes the fake fiance. So they have not only a fake dating, fake engagement, but a marriage of convenience. Like they all the way married. And then like they kind of fall for each other after they're married. Essentially, Marriage of Conveniences is one of those like very underhyped tropes. I don't think that it gets enough praise, but when it's done well, it's chef's kiss. Next up, we have You Made a Fool of Death with Her Beauty, Your Beauty, by Quick AMSA. This is definitely another one of those romances for people who don't necessarily love romance. It definitely has more of a literary feel to it. And this is about a woman who lost her husband, fiance, in a car accident. And it was like a very freak accident, right? They were newlyweds. They were just starting their life. And then he dies. And she has to kind of move on with her life. And she's struggling with this, like going on other dates and then like being like, well, would he have approved of this person? What would he have thought? And so she just kind of has to like work through that. She goes on a lot of like one night stands and then meets this other guy. I can't go into a lot without spoiling this book. The synopsis is very different than actually what's in the book. So I'm very curious to see how this one will do, just because it is one of those like romances for people that don't necessarily read romance, and so people that read general fiction might gravitate towards this one. It is one of very few BIPOC authors on here as well, so I'm hoping that like it does better. Then we have Thank You for Listening by Julia Whelan. I read this one this summer, not for a project. I think it was actually for Rom-Comathon, and this is about a woman who was an actor. She got into a really bad accident and lost her eye, and so she couldn't really act anymore, so she moved on to audiobook narrating. She does like the literary fiction type books, and then she is asked to narrate a romance audiobook. And then she has this email correspondence with the person that is playing the male lead. And then she ends up meeting a guy for a one night stand, and they have more in common. Those two, the guy that she's emailing and the guy that she's sleeping with, they have more in common than you might think. You know, right? Then we have The Wedding Crasher by Mia Sosa, another book that I will not shut up about. I've read this summer. I loved this book so much. It is another book about fake dating. This woman overhears a bride saying, oh, I don't actually love him. I love this other person. And so she calls off the wedding. She's like, when they say, if anyone objects, and she does, she objects. Well, come to find out, it had been a marriage of convenience. They were both trying to get promotions, and they needed to be married in order to further their careers. And so then he's like, well, now I'm screwed because I was going to make partner at my law firm, but the person that's making that decision is very much a family man and didn't want a bachelor being a partner. So that's why I was getting married. And so then she's like, well, I'll date you then, and I'll be engaged to you. Fake dating with real feelings. We love it. The main character is Brazilian, and so there's a lot of Brazilian food talk, culture talk, which I loved. Then we have Funny You Should Ask by Alyssa Sussman. This is about a woman who ends up in the tabloids because she spent a weekend with this celebrity, I think. The interview turns into a whirlwind weekend that has the tabloids buzzing. So she's interviewing the celebrity, and then it turns into some sort of whirlwind weekend. And then a decade later, they're trying to reunite for a second interview to get some more publicity. And so maybe a second chance romance. Then It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover, another book that I knew was going to be on here and I really didn't want to read. If you go back to watching my anti-haul, both Love on the Brain and this book was on here. And guess what? Fun stuff. This is the sequel to It Ends With Us, which is about a woman who is trying to get out of an abusive relationship. It's really this like self-discovery of trying to find who she is on her own. There's a romance about between her and this man that's helping her get out of the abusive relationship. It's a very triggering book, especially if you have ever been in a some sort of abusive or toxic marriage or relationship. It's very challenging. This is the sequel to that. And she has gotten out of that abusive relationship. However, they had a child, so he's still in her life. And so she's trying to navigate this new relationship that she's in while still trying to co-parent with the father who was the abuser. It's a lot, and it's definitely a book that you needed to read. It Ends With Us before this one. It's not like a companion novel. And then lastly, The Kiss Curse by Erin Sterling. This is a really fun fall witchy romance. It's the sequel to The Ex-Hex, and it is about this woman who has this kind of witchy tourist shop. They have this little town, and they have tourists that come because it's Halloween town, right? So she's trying to capitalize on that. And then this other guy who is part of the magic, his family creates the magic, something like that, for this town, and he has to come back to the town to recharge the magic. And he actually sets up the same kind of thing, like a witchy candle shop kind of thing, across the street. So they have this little rivals relationship, but then obviously they can't keep their hands off of each other. There's maybe a spell that dumped onto them, a potion that made them want to fall in love and do things. So anyways, I read this one kind of on its own, not as part of a project. This was actually our Patreon book club for October, I believe. I don't remember months. So like I said, here are the rankings that I have of the books that I have read so far up to this point. Now let's get into the vlog portion of the video. Good evening. We are starting book one out with a bang, I guess. I figured we would just get this one out of the way because I am very much not interested in reading this book. And I am 100 pages in, and that's still the case. First off, I read It Ends With Us at the beginning of the year. I read it for the book talk made me do it or something like that. And it was fine. The book was fine, but it definitely did not need a sequel. This is a sequel. This is following the aftermath with, a year, I think a year after that book takes place. We're currently on a scene where he's mansplaining arguments. That's fun. Love that. Mansplaining gaslighting, which is just gaslighting. It really is. So yeah, I don't like this book at all. Currently it's sitting at a 2-star. It's funny because everyone on Book Talk just thinks that Atlas is God's gift to man, right? Or God's gift to women, I guess, technically. And he's doing the fucking bare minimum. The bar's on the floor. The bar's on the floor with this man. And he's not super great, right? I'm not loving him. May I introduce you to Talia Hibbert? Or Olivia Dade? Or, looking at my romance shelf, literally anyone else. Literally, Mia Sosa. Literally anyone else would have a better male hero. So I'm probably gonna get canceled for this video just right out the gate. Y'all are just gonna click off now, even though there's 30 plus minutes probably. I don't know, we're just starting this project. Footage left. I hope this doesn't win. For the love of all things holy, I hope. Even if Coho wins the Goodreads Choice Awards, I hope it's not this one. Reminders of Him was not bad. It was fine. It was its own story. This feels like fan service. This feels like a cash grab. It feels like because It Ends With Us had this resurrection of popularity when it got popular on Book Talk. And so she's like, oh, let me write another book really fast to make it more popular. And it feels like that. It very much feels like a cash grab. And you know what? Kudos to her for working the system and winning at capitalism. But no thank you for making me read this. Hello. We are here because I have finished the first book. I actually finished it a couple of days ago, and then I got COVID, which is why I sound like this. Because I still technically have COVID. I feel better, though. Okay. It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover. I gave 1.5 stars. This book is bad. This book is so bad. I talked a little bit about this already when I was discussing this book, like at the halfway point. I don't know why this book exists. It Ends With Us actually has a really powerful message, right? It talks about abuse, it talks about domestic abuse, and trying to get out of those toxic relationships. And I think that the book ended on a really good note. And then this book feels like Colleen Hoover was like, oh, It Ends With Us is getting a lot of buzz on Book Talk. Let me write a sequel. And this felt like she wrote it in like a couple of weeks and just sent it to press, and it became a New York Times bestseller. And it's not fair sometimes when that happens. This book was just bad. I mean, like, my favorite review on Goodreads says something like, congratulations, this man is doing the bare minimum and we are treating him like a Jane Austen character. And it's true, right? He's doing the bare minimum. Like, he's so basic. He's not doing anything special. If you want a good cinnamon roll man or a good man, read Olivia Dade, read Talia Hibbert, read literally anyone but Colleen Hoover. Because this book was like, there was nothing special about it. Also, the amount of times that TikTok is mentioned and, like, you know, generational conversations, it was so weird. Also, name one restaurant owner that has a 0 in their email inbox at all times, because that's not a thing. That doesn't happen. I'm sorry. Yeah, this was 1.5 stars. My review of this book starts with, have you ever been mansplained gaslighting while being gaslit? Because I can now say that I have. That's where we are in this book. So anyways, of the rankings here, right here, we're just gonna go ahead and put it down at number 20. I don't think anything's gonna beat it for the worst book. If it does, dear God help me. Yeah, I do have to read Love on the Brain though, so we'll see. Anyways, let's move on to book 2. Hello. Looks like I'm in the same spot. Promise you I'm not. Well, I'm in the same spot. Promise you it's a different day. Still have COVID. Still don't sound great. But we're on to book 2, which is You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Emeze. I am liking this. It's definitely not my favorite. It definitely has it just has a different feel than most romance books, which I think I am enjoying, especially this is going to be sandwiched between Colleen Hoover and Ali Hazelwood, so like that's good that this feels different, but it definitely has a more literary feel to it. Because of that, I don't know how good it's going to do on the Goodreads Choice Awards. However, people that I've been talking to that are not romance readers have really liked this, and so maybe because of that it will do okay. I don't know, it's not gonna win, but it might like make the finals. I'm really trying to start the books that I think are gonna make the finals, because technically we haven't gotten to that point yet. So we're still in the top 20. I think that comes out next week, so we'll have to like do a part 2 reaction to this. Right now it's kind of sitting at the middle of the road. I am really liking the like cultural aspects of it. She's talking about her hair, she's talking about the food, she's talking about like, you know, different cultural aspects that obviously like I'm not like familiar with, but I'm enjoying hearing about them and listening to them. The audiobook is done by Bonnie Turpin, and so I'm really enjoying that. And so yeah, it's sitting at like a 3.5 right now, but we'll see. I'm only 30% in, so I'm gonna continue listening to it. Hello everybody, I have finished You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty, and I am very torn by this book. I'm gonna give it 3 stars. And that's only because the writing is beautiful, and I definitely think that I will read more from this author. But this book was weird, and I can't really talk to you about why it was weird or why I didn't like it, because it's not in the synopsis. But the synopsis is not what this book is about at all. The romance that it talks about on the synopsis, not what actually happens. And I don't know how to talk about this book. I get why non-romance readers will like this book, because it's very literary fiction. It's very kind of messed up, I don't know. It doesn't follow the normal pattern of a romance book, which I think is why I'm struggling with it so much, because the whole concept of the book is just very different from that general like 3-act, like it doesn't follow the beats of a romance book, right? You don't actually meet the person that they're in the like the romance begins until well into the book. And so I'm really struggling with this book, very much struggling with it. So here's where I've decided to put it. Obviously it's not going to be a win for me. I think that it could potentially still make that top 10 list. Moving on. I don't know how I feel about this. I'll read more from A Quick AM Essay. I'll probably even read another romance from them if they write another one. This one though, the tropes and the concept of it just really did not sit well with me. I can tell you there's trigger warnings for cheating. It's a very gray area. It's kind of like, I don't know, some people would call it cheating. I'm calling it cheating. I'm calling it like a lot of deception happening. And I wasn't really okay with that. So, this is not my favorite, but we will move on. Hello. Yeah, I'm in the same shirt that you just saw me in. That's because we're doing this back to back. I am on sprints. And I am reading Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. And I'm 27% into this. And I think that I'm going to probably have to eat my words because I don't hate this book. And I think that might be the biggest surprise of this entire video, right? I don't hate this book. I mean, I'm not loving it. It's not like the perfect book in the world, but it's not the worst thing I've read, and it is leaps and bounds better than The Love Hypothesis. I think one of the things that I really didn't like about The Love Hypothesis, it started out with such a cringe meet cute, and this one didn't. The characters just feel more mature, and I don't know if it's because like she already has a PhD, so she's not a student, so she's kind of a little bit more sure of herself, more confident, but yeah, I don't hate this book. I'm gonna continue reading it, and I'm gonna have to eat my words. So, okay, bye. Coming here from the same spot, this is where I edit videos, and I'm editing this video, realizing that I never finished talking about Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood because I finished reading it on the plane like a week and a half ago. Let's talk about this. I did not have me liking an Ali Hazelwood book on my 2022 bingo card. Here we are. I'm giving this 4 stars. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. She's vegan, and if you don't remember, she's vegan. Oh, and if I haven't said it before, she's vegan. Good God, they talk about it so much. But I actually liked this. I liked character arcs. I liked the story. I think, and I was talking about this with Michelle on Sprints last night, I think one of the things that set this apart from Love Hypothesis is there's no power imbalance, because with Love Hypothesis, there is a professor and a student. And so that they like really tried to make that gap really big. And like, because of that, kind of infantilized the main character, whatever her name was. It felt weird. It felt off. And so I wasn't here for that. So I didn't like that. I didn't like the fact that like she was a student, so she just didn't feel very professional. Like a lot of the situations just felt very unprofessional and like not what she would be doing in an academic setting. So I didn't love that. And then also like just the ability to create her own characters, right? Love Hypothesis is so much based on Raylo fanfic. This one, Bee and Levi are original characters. And so they have these like quirks and these things that like don't feel fake or forced. It feels like that's just who they are. I liked the family dynamics. I liked the conversations about families and how they're like, you know, not living up to family expectations, that kind of thing. So yeah, like this book all around was much stronger in writing style, and you know, I am the fool. So I liked this book. I will give her another try in 2023. Good evening, everybody. The lighting is shit and the sound is probably shit too, but we're in a hotel room. We have to do what we have to do. It is 10:42 p.m. on a Monday, November 28th, and the finalists have been announced. I think technically it said the 29th, but benefits of being on the West Coast, you get them a little bit early. So we're going to react to them. Before I do, first off, here's what I've read. I've read 13 of the books so far, 13 of the 20. So depending on what ends up in the top 10, we may still try for the 20 books, with the exception of maybe like Twisted Hate and Terms and Conditions may not, because it is the second book, or the second and third book in the series, and I don't know that I want to commit to that, but we'll see. So let's talk about predictions. Before I pull this up, let's talk about what I think will be on there. These are in no particular order, and it might seem a little bit presumptuous to say that Delilah Green Doesn't Care is going to make it into the top 10. However, hear me out. It is the only sapphic book. So maybe the queers will unite. That's what I'm hoping, honestly. I do think that both of Colleen Hoover books will be in the final 10. I do think that Ali Hazelwood will be in the top 10. I don't think that there's any question of that. The American Roommate Experiment, I did look. The Spanish Love Deception did really well. And so I think that one will be. Things We Never Got Over, I think will be the TikTok winner of the three: Twisted Hate, Terms and Conditions, and Things We Never Got Over. I think that Things We Never Got Over will be the top. Hook, Line, and Sinker, Tessa Bailey is a kind of a staple in the romance world, so I don't think that that one's going to have an issue. And then of course, Book Lovers, People We Meet on Vacation, won last year, and so I don't think that there's going to be any question that that one will be. But these are really the only ones that I'm like for sure are going to, and let's be honest, I'm not even really sure about that. We're guessing at this point. We're just taking a guess. So maybe Terms and Conditions will be, I don't know. It has a lot of ratings on Goodreads. And then maybe You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty, only because it definitely has a more literary appeal to it, and people that aren't necessarily romance readers are going to gravitate towards that one. But I don't know. Let's see. The final round is here. Hopefully the screen recording is working. Okay, here we go. Okay. I didn't get them all right. Okay, Delilah Green Doesn't Care is in the final though. I'm so happy for that. Twisted Hate by Anna Huang, interesting. Love on the Brain, got that one. Reminders of Him, got that one. Hook, Line, and Sinker, got that one. Book Lovers. Every Summer After, Things We Never Got Over, and then It Starts With Us and Terms and Conditions. Interesting. I didn't see that coming. I did not see that coming. Okay, so I actually got 8 of the 10 right, which I'm kind of excited about. The American Roommate Experiment not being on this list makes me a little happy, because I did not like the Spanish Love Deception, and I was not looking forward to being able to read, or to having to read, the American Roommate Experiment. Am I going to? Probably, yes. You know. And then You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty did not make it into the finals again. Not upset about that, because I didn't really like that book. With that said, of the ones that are still in here that I have not read yet, Twisted Hate by Anna Huang, which is the 3rd book in a series. I think you can read them separately, but they kind of have like intermingling things, so we'll see what happens there. It's a 15-hour audiobook though, Jesus Christ. Every Summer After, and Terms and Conditions. I can 100% read 3 books in 6 days. I can do that. Technically it's 4 books, because I do have to read the fine print before I read Terms and Conditions. But we're going to do what we can. Okay, we're gonna do what we can. All right, so I'll talk to you later. Hello everybody, I am on sprints right now, so I wanted to catch up with you. I am about 50% of the way through Twisted Hate by Anna Huang, and I'm actually enjoying this. I will say it's too long. We were very slow burn. We're very much like drilling in the angst, but also like the hate to love. We're still in that hate to love, which is not my favorite trope, but I'm still having a really good time with this. There are parts where I'm like, this wasn't necessary for the book, and I get it, like it's a Kindle Unlimited book, and so they get paid per page count. So I think KU books tend to be a little bit inflated. And so I think that when it was like published semi-traditionally, It's like an indie house. It's through Bloom. I think we could have edited it down a little bit, but like I'm still having a good time. We're still having a good time. Josh is an ass, but then like he's sweet. He does these like sweet things, right? So the ski lodge, chef's kiss. We love that. And like they're very nuanced characters. They have this like extra layer to them that I'm really enjoying. I'm gonna go, but yeah, it's pretty good right now. Hello. I have finished Twisted Hate by Anna Huang, and I'm giving it 4 stars. I actually really liked most of it. However, and I think that this is a problem with KU books, indie books in general, but specifically KU books. For the love of God, edit your books. You don't need to put 5,000 subplots into one book. You could have used that plot device in another book. Okay? We had let me try to remember this. Okay? I finished it last night, right? And I'm still having trouble. We had a dad who was in jail. We had a mom who died. We had an ex who was blackmailing. We had what else? Like both of them had bad family lives. We had like this rich landlord friend person. We had a wedding, like a royal wedding. It was a lot. And it was one of those things that we got to the end of the book and I was like, oh yeah, the beginning of the book, they were looking for this apartment and they knew a billionaire friend. So they went and like, they were able to stay at this apartment. I forgot it was the same book. And I have this problem a lot with a lot of KU books, right? We had this problem last year, I guess the beginning of this year, with the Spanish Love Deception. Things We Never Got Over has the same problem. Like, we put so much into it, and it's just you need to edit a little bit, like rein it in. So other than that, I actually really liked the book. I think that the sex scenes were great, like very spicy, very steamy. I almost knocked it down quite a bit because the third act breakup, there was some, I don't like when books use like hate fucking, and like almost like sex as a punishment, just because it's like, you know, a little bit personally triggering for me. So that was not a favorite thing of mine, and I thought it was going to go unresolved, but they actually did talk about it. So that was good. I liked the way that they resolved that. So we're doing okay. It's fine. I'm gonna give it 4 stars. Here's where we're gonna put it on the list. Editing Brie will figure that out. But yeah, we're moving on. I am 100% certain we are not going to get all 20 of the books. We might do a part 2 with the few books that I haven't read, that didn't make the top 10, and like, should they have been in the top 10? That kind of thing. I think that's what I'll do, because I'm like stressing myself out because I still have 2 books to read and I need this video to go out in a few days. So that's what we might do as a part 2. The next book that we're going to be reading is Terms and Conditions, which I am reading right now. But I will leave that update for a little bit later. Hello. Lighting is really bad, but we're in my bedroom. I just wanted to update you. I actually didn't update you while I was reading Terms and Conditions, so I wanted to update you now that I'm finished with it. I'm struggling with this one, so I'm giving it 3.5 stars. I'm trying to like, because I read this one directly after Twisted Hate, and I think like Twisted Hate was better. It's a different book. Like, it is different, but it still kind of has that like power imbalance, kind of rich person, not, you know what I mean? Okay, anyways, this is a fake dating, more like a marriage of convenience book between the up-and-coming CEO of the Dreamland company, which is kind of like Disney, and like they have movies, they have TV shows, and they have streaming services, but then they also have parks. So he's gonna be the CEO of the company. His grandfather in his will said you can be the CEO of the company, but you have to be married and you have to have an heir in like this X amount of time. And he's about to get married, and the fiance just up and leaves. Like, she's like, nope, I can't do this. We're done. So then, because like everything's already set, like the engagement party is set, like things have been announced, right? So his assistant, who has been with him for so long, kind of just steps in and is like, hi, I'm his fiance. Would just move forward as planned. And so they end up getting married, and then they try to have to like legitimize their marriage because they don't want anybody else to know, because otherwise the contract will be null and void. So they have to like go on these public dates, and it's kind of cute in the fact where like they are trying to like fall in love, or they end up falling in love as they are already married, and it was cute. I think it was too long, too slow. It felt redundant and repetitive. And so I think that The Fine Print, which is the first book in the series, is probably my favorite of the two that I've read so far. But like even in The Fine Print, Declan, who's the main character in this one, was not my favorite character. He's kind of like just a grumpy asshole, really. But I mean, there's definitely some conversations about like, you know, not being able to be in a relationship, not knowing how to be in a relationship, not knowing how to love other people, because of how he was raised and how he was brought up, and he never really saw a healthy relationship in his life. So I get it, but yeah, 3.5 stars. So this is where it's sitting on my rankings, and we're moving on to the next book. We are on to our final book of this video, and that's Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. Unfortunately, I think we're going to be ending this video on a sad note, a sour note. I don't know. I hate this book. First off, it's a lot of flashbacks between when they were teenagers and then when they're back for a family member's funeral. So like it's like going back and forth between adult and child. And so half of it feels like a YA novel because it's like a summer romance between a 16-year-old and a 17 or 18-year-old. I don't really know. So there's that. There's 2 brothers that are involved, and I'm not really sure how that's gonna work out, but neither one of them have a personality to speak of. Like they're not unique at all, so I can't remember who is who. And like she's annoying. She's like, the awkwardness is like peak level cringe. And then even as adults, she's still awkward and cringy. And so like I'm not having a good time. I've also read that there's like a cheating element in him, which like, as you know, not a fan of. I'm not gonna DNF it because I don't want this to be like the one book on this list that I don't read, because I've read all the other, like I've read the other top 10. I'm going to do a video with the other, like the bottom 10 that I didn't read. So I don't want this to be the one book of the 20 that I didn't read. But it's not good. It's not good. So anyways, I have about 2 hours left of listening on the audiobook. I'm gonna finish it this morning at work and go from there. But Jesus. Ugh. Okay guys, I have finished Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. And with that, the project is over. Let's talk about this book really fast, and then we will wrap up this project and kind of talk about the winners and Goodreads Choice as a whole. I know that could be a whole other video, so I'm not going to go into real detail about it, but Every Summer After is not great. For the most part, I was just bored. I was bored the whole time. Half of this book takes place 13 years in the past, which, if we're doing the math, means that it's a YA romance. One of my least favorite genres, or subgenres or whatever, is cis, straight, white YA romances with nothing underlying that's like a serious social commentary. That is exactly what half of this book is. And then the other half of it, which is like the now, like the flashbacks and then you have the now, is just the 2 adults, or the 3 adults, acting like the teenagers, despite 13 years of growing up and becoming an adult. We're still acting like teenagers, and we're still doing stupid, awkward, cringy things. So, I'm giving this book 2.5 stars. Here's where it's sitting on the list. And, with that being said, let's wrap everything up. So I didn't quite get to all 20 of the books, but I did do the 10 finalists. I'm going to do a part 2 video later in January where I will read the rest of the 20 and like talk about whether or not they should have been in the top 10. Obviously, Delilah Green doesn't care, did not get ousted. at all. She didn't get ousted. She didn't get like overtook in the first one that I had done this. Like no one overtook her, and no one took that spot in this either. This is the book that I voted for. This is the book that I wanted to win. I love this book so much, like if we couldn't tell. Unfortunately, it did not win. It did better than I thought it was going to do, but unfortunately, Emily Henry is still the queen of romance, apparently. There were so many votes for this book. It was like 175,000 people voted for this book.
That's gonna be my villain origin story.
It's fine. I'm not gonna rant. I'm not gonna rant about it. I do want to say one thing about the Goodreads Choice Awards, and I don't think that we should be surprised by it. It's just disappointing in the fact that the winners of most of the categories were very white. Like, it is very white. And I think that there's a larger conversation to this. Yes, there's not really a lot of like science or statistics that go into this this competition and who is nominated and things like that. It's very arbitrary. The other conversation I think that needs to be had about this, and the reason why this is so white, and like it's a popularity contest and therefore these are the popular books, but I think the bigger argument there is not that like Goodreads is at fault, but publishing is, because these books are popular because publishing is pushing these books out. And that's the problem, is that publishing is putting their money behind white authors, cis straight authors, and not diverse authors, not queer authors, not BIPOC authors. That is the problem at the root cause. This back here is very white and very straight. Okay, I think there's one BIPOC author here, and there's one queer author, queer romance. There's a problem in publishing. If these are the 10 most popular books that we are, as a collective book journet, talking about, this is a problem. I think if I continue talking, I'm going to spiral into a massive rant, and I don't want to do that in this book. This is a whole other video. Could be a whole other conversation. So we're going to end it here. If you're still here and you've watched till this point, recommend me in the comments below a diverse romance. Because if we're being 100% honest, this video and the books that I had to read for this video skewed my diversity stats in a very bad way. So recommend me some diverse romances that you love down below, whether that be a BIPOC author or BIPOC main characters, a queer author, queer romance, something. Just give me the happiness. I am gonna go and read a queer romance because I'm dying in cis het romance right now, and it's making me sad. So anyways, thank you guys so much for joining me. This was a project, that's for sure. If you are new here and you have not yet subscribed, there's a little red button that you can do so down below. If you'd like to hang out with me more, the links to my Instagram at Goodreads and my Patreon are linked in the description down below. Thank you for watching. Have a happy holidays.